flowers bloom. I see a light in the corner. I feel the air on my face and the crowd screaming, Mama Africa. I set my eyes outside the dark edge and I can see the glory standing in the mist. Amidst the troubles, the pain, the tears, the cries, we have always lived with a smile upon our faces. When morning falls at the set of dawn in the morning of my future, I know a new day has come and a new breeze has filled the air. The birds are humming beautiful melodies in the trees. Then I feel the music coming from afar, and when I open my ears wide, all I can make sense out of it is that the storm is over. And that is when I know that Africa still has hope, and I have hope for you, for I, and for the rest of us.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Yes, okay, thumbs up from Nate, thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
All right, Henry can hear me as well. All right, so we're gonna get started. First up, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Knowledge Box, and I wanna introduce our leader, Henry Lukenge. So Knowledge Box is a financial literacy program, as you all have found out. That's why you're here this afternoon. It's about empowering women and marginalized youth. My name is Danny Shelton. I'm the program coordinator for Knowledge Box. It's a pleasure to have all of you here, okay?
Thank you.
So NIDO's mission, okay? The Nexum International Development Organization is an international social enterprise encouraging local communities in Uganda to put our resources together and furnish public schools. We began our nonprofit building work with our partners at Cambridge Secondary School, and we have constructed a library, a computer lab, a boys and a girls dormitory for the school, and also helped to provide sustainable energy technology. Okay. Another one of the parts of our efforts is using arts. So you may have heard of our troupe, the Subi Fusion troupe. They've come to Ontario and they've been touring here for the last couple of years. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we've had to pause travels and touring, but as soon as we can, we would love to bring them back. But stay tuned for this upcoming fall. We'll be having a Subi live performance, which will be on virtual, so everyone can tune in. So that's a little bit about some of our efforts. And before we get to Henry, I want to just mention one quote from Ayn Rand, who is a philosopher, Russian-American philosopher. She says, "Money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish, but it will not replace you as the driver." Okay, so that is very key, and that's really important to message for why we're here today, trying to really learn how to be a driver of our own lives and our own financial success and path. So with no further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Henry Lukenge so he can tell us even more about his journey and also the work that he's done in Knowledge Box. Thank you.
Thank you. First off, thank you everyone for making time to attend our first session of the Knowledge Box. Obviously, we're all busy and have things to do, but I believe it's important to pause and ask ourselves what we need to do going forward and why we're doing what we're doing, and what gaps we need in our lives, what gaps we need to fill in our lives to be better at everything we're doing. I'm going to do a short background about myself. I was born in East Africa in Uganda. There's the country they are called Uganda. We east of Kenya, north of Tanzania, east of the Congo, and south of Sudan. In the 70s, there was a gentleman called Idi Amin. He was what's he called? Very terrible dictator who, in the 70s, was responsible for the death of many Ugandans. So, anyways, during that time, we left Uganda as refugees, went to South Africa, where I saw a bit of apartheid, moved to Kenya, and then moved to England. In England, I wanted to become a CA. Then I did an MBA as well, and then got a career in finance around the world. Now, obviously, that brought me to Canada, but in between all these movements and career developments, I made many mentors who obviously helped me shape myself and become the person I've become. So through that exercise, I moved to Canada, got a job, um, um, and then became an FD for a big bank, and then left the bank, set up a company. That company is Nexum Healthcare. Now, a portion of its profits at the setup was to go to the activities to advance access to education in the third world, because my journey was only possible because I went to school, right? So most of people know me would know very well that I'm quite passionate about the idea that education should be a human right, not a privilege for the wealthy. That's why our business commits 10% of its margins to program to advance access to education. Now, in addition to that, we do obviously field efficiency in schools, and we're quite keen on wildlife conservation efforts in the region through fuel efficiency and socioeconomic uplifting of communities near the parks. As you can see through these pictures, many Africans have no facilities. That's our focus: budgeting construction of schools, and then also what's it called? Providing for education funding for what's it called? Teachers' salaries and food and all that sort of thing. We've built several schools, and we've been over the years helped provide a high school education to over 4,000 girls. As we go, as the slide goes, you see the slide there. These are some of our projects over the years that we've done. And then this is what has led us to what we're going to talk about today, which is the knowledge box. As everyone has seen through life, that there are gaps between what's available to people and what they can access, right? So being minority-led organization, we're trying to figure out ways to empower communities in which we do business. Being an international charity working abroad, we're also cognizant of the challenges young people locally face in accessing opportunities. And we've chosen some ways to intervene in the lives of young people locally so we can help them achieve their potentials. One of the ways we've chosen to do this is through our Knowledge Box program. And our goal with the program is really to provide skills, right? Financial, also mental, but also practical training skills that can enable young people sort of look at things early and then be able to profit from other opportunities that the environment they're in presents them. And one of the ways we've chosen to do this is through financial literacy, because obviously the community you live in has opportunities if you can see them. And we believe through financial literacy, you can focus it to some of them and help you go after those that are within your reach that you're not otherwise aware of. So obviously, most of the work, most of our work is coming from the fact that these are several issues that affect young people, especially minorities. Like as everyone has seen, economic exclusion based on factors like race, sex, gender, and also access to knowledge based on historic disadvantages that we face based on the fact that not many of us about the knowledge. Not many of us have people within our circles who have the knowledge that we need to be able to succeed. So, anyways, without going too far, that's a summary of what you're trying to do, and I think I want to introduce Nate, I believe, to talk about what he's going to help us with during what he's going to help us with in the knowledge box going forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you so much. Just give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Nate. I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
Started with this. Henry introduced this idea to me, I think it's going to be 6 months, I'd say. And it's a fantastic opportunity, I think, because of the marriage of interests that we share and our aptitudes, because we both have a background in finance. So my story is pretty different from Henry's. I grew up in Kingston, Ontario, just sort of generic middle class white dude. And my parents were pretty poor when we were growing up, as far as North American standards are concerned. And they had four boys, so that was always a challenge for them to try to manage their budget and that sort of thing. But my dad always had a keen interest in finance, and he was, despite being a construction worker, he would manage his own stock portfolio. And he gave me, a basic education in how to do stock investing, which is kind of miraculous for, an 8-year-old to receive that knowledge at that point. And it definitely has informed the direction of my life, in the sense that, I went off to university, got a degree in economics at Waterloo, bounced around in a couple jobs, and then I ended up eventually starting my own financial planning practice in commissioned sales. And so I still do that today. It's the only real career I've ever had. And so I'm operating now an independent financial planning practice. And so again, to get back to the purpose of what we're doing today, it's a very exciting marriage of the two things that we're really concerned about, which is I'm very concerned about helping poor people elevate themselves, because it doesn't just work in terms of handouts. You can't hand out wealth to create it. It comes from somewhere, right? So the question is, where does it come from, and how might you make that wealth your own? And so that's maybe a theme of everything that we're going to talk about. But we're trying to give tools to you guys to be able to support your own journey as you grow your own wealth. I guess I'll start with this. My component today is really about psychology, and what are your beliefs about your own life. So I'm just going to throw out a question here. I don't know how that's going to work for Danny. If you're able to, are you able to do a poll, or if I throw out this question, what career aren't you going to choose?
I'm not able to do a live poll right now, but you guys can go ahead and put your responses. Maybe choose yes or no. Are you giving multiple options?
No, it's a broad, like, blue
Okay.
sky question.
Okay.
I want an example of a career that somebody's definitely not gonna pick.
Can someone give me an example of a career in the chat?
Yeah, just anybody throw it out. It's all good.
Zenith said teacher.
Not gonna be a teacher, okay. And maybe you can give us just a quick why on.
Can I just say it like out loud?
Yeah, totally. Go for it.
So I just wouldn't want to be a teacher because I don't know. I don't have like a set answer. It's just something I never interested me. Whenever people tell me they want to be a teacher, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would not want to have that job.
I totally
But
hear
like
that.
a high school teacher, I think maybe a kindergarten teacher, but
Well, that's a great answer. And please do be a kindergarten teacher, because I would hate that job. So maybe just one more example for fun. Is there anybody else who has an idea of something that they just would never do?
Any other examples? You can send me a direct message, or you can just go ahead and speak up.
Cleaner of toilets.
Oh, I see a welder, surgeon,
Okay.
cleaning toilets. Yeah.
I want to hear about the surgeon. Why would you not want to be a surgeon?
Bella, can you speak up on that one?
I just wouldn't want to be a surgeon. One, I don't think that I'd be set for it. I'm not the type of, like, I don't think I'm smart enough. And also just like operating on people I think it'd be mentally draining.
Those are very good points. And I think I'm really glad I picked you, because that is exactly kind of what I'm getting at here with my question, which is, here's the career I wouldn't choose: professional basketball player. Why? Because there's not a chance I could ever do it, right? I know for a fact first off, I'm getting real old now. I'm almost 34. So, that ends the career. right there. But you know, even as a child, I never would have thought about doing it because I'm pretty bad at basketball, right? And it's like a very specific kind of person who can succeed that way. And so, you know, when I was thinking about my career, it was never on the table. And so, because it was never on the table, I definitely was never going to do it. And so, why don't we seize opportunity that's maybe in front of us, right? So, first off, you have to not seize opportunity because there are just infinite possibilities in your life that you could take a hold of. So, you do have to choose something, right? And so that's one reason why you don't seize certain opportunities. Another reason is that you're not aware of opportunities, and that's actually a really important part of the knowledge box, is trying to give you that information so that you have awareness, and then you can make an evaluation that's informed. But this is the one I want to talk about today, because this is something that we can't fix this problem just by telling you information. This is something that is a conceptual attitude that you have about yourself. And that was great that Bella brought that up there. She's like, I don't think I'm smart enough to be a surgeon, right? And so because she doesn't feel she's smart enough, she probably isn't going to put effort into it because, well, why bother, right? It just makes sense. And so perception of futility, you feel like if you were to put effort into it, it would never work out, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about psychology. I don't know how many people have had a chance to maybe take a course or do their own self-study in psychology, but there's this concept called classical conditioning, which Pavlov, if you heard about Pavlov's dogs, he was the one who trained them. They learned how to, well, they would salivate when he rang a bell because they associated this bell ringing with food being served. So this is really early on in psychology's development. And so Martin Seligman, he was doing research around the same time with some of the same concepts. And so he would ring this bell, and he would have a dog, and some people are going to be uncomfortable with this, but what they did was they put a dog in an enclosure, and they put a little electrified mat down, and they would ring the bell, and they would give the dog just a little shock. So it wasn't injuring the dog, but it definitely wasn't making the dog happy. So that was the experiment. So they put them in the enclosure. They did this. They associated the bell with this shock. And so then they took those same dogs and they set up a new enclosure. That second enclosure had two sections to it. One section was like the original one that had this little electrified mat, and then there was a partition that the dog was able to jump over, and then the other side was not electrified. And so the dogs that had been through the first experiment and had learned that there was an association with that bell and the shock, when the bell rung, instead of jumping over to get away from the shock, what they did was they rang the bell, and then the dog just lay down and accepted the shock. It never jumped over, even though it could have jumped over and avoided getting shocked. This was a contrast to dogs that were not part of the first group. If they were not part of the first group, then they actually did jump to avoid the shock because they hadn't learned that this bell and this shock were inevitable. And so these dogs, that he coined a phrase here, it's called learned helplessness. And the idea is, if you keep having this sense that there's an inevitable negative consequence that you can't avoid, why bother trying? And so you can learn to feel helpless. And that's what happened with these dogs. And it can happen to people as well. And so how does that work? Well, there's this cycle here. And so if you have, a lack of success in something, you get a sense of failure and you can develop negative attitudes. And then those can lead to basically not bothering to put in effort because you feel like, what's the point, right? And that's it makes perfect sense, but it ends up creating this negative feedback loop that you can really get trapped in. So, you have two different students here, I guess, in this scenario. One person who's kind of learned that helplessness because, they have maybe had some failure. And then because of that, they feel it's like there's no point trying. You can't change anything through your effort, so you don't put in a lot of effort, and then you tend to give up, and things don't necessarily work out, and then it kind of feeds back on itself. Versus another cycle that could also feed back on itself, which is you experience some success and you feel, oh, okay, if I work hard at this and try and put in some effort, then I actually can achieve results, and then it ends up often paying off, and then it pays off, and now you feel great, like I aced the test, this is great, okay, I can do this again, and then it feeds back on itself, and so it's a virtuous cycle as opposed to a vicious cycle. So this is the idea of learned helplessness. So we want to give you guys tools to be successful, but there's nothing I can do to change your attitude toward what you think you can and can't do. We can try to open the door with knowledge, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision about how you're going to view yourself. And I'm not saying that we should all pretend like we're going to be basketball players, but if you can try to view yourself on a little bit broader scope and say, you know, maybe the things that I thought were out of my reach are actually possible. You know, maybe Bella could be a surgeon. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want to be one myself because it sounds messy and I have shaky hands. So that would be fatal probably for somebody. But anyway, so you have a choice here about your attitude to some degree. And so we're trying to encourage you to say, hey, you know, maybe there's more that's possible in my life, things that I've decided I can't do that maybe you could, you know, and I don't know what those things are, but this is the way that you want to try to train yourself to think, that mastery orientation. So, and this is like a really important concept that I wanted to share with you guys as well, because I want you to be thinking as we're going along this process about career orientation and future planning, because these are tools that empower you to move forward, but you're going to need to come up with a career that's a viable option for you. And this is where I am in my life, and I'm very happy with my career. You know, I had to compromise on job security in the sense that I took a commissioned sales job. Turned out it worked out pretty well, but that's not for everybody. That was a sacrifice I made, and now I enjoy a lot of career flexibility. I enjoy a high income. I'm doing work that's extremely intrinsically valuable. I'm helping people with problems that they can't solve themselves. And so it's like I've got all this stuff going on that's really, really positive about my career. So, you know, I build retirement plans for my clients. I probably never get retired just because I'll keep doing it, right? So, but here's what I found, right? Okay, so I have an interest. So I'm interested in financial planning. I'm interested in helping people. I'm interested in, you know, making money to some degree, but that'll come up in a bit. Aptitude, I'm actually good at it, right? Like I got one of these big brain things going on. So I know how to use Excel really well. I can do this work at a high level, right? So this is both something that I'm interested in and something that I'm capable of doing, unlike basketball. And then things that are actual jobs, because there are a ton of people who are very interested, let's say in, I don't know, being like a professional athlete or a musician or something. And like, it's fine to try to do those things, but I don't think that should be plan A for almost everyone. Almost everyone should have like a different plan A where it's like, no, this is a real career. You know, people who just go on a course of study can find themselves in that career very consistently. So you want to think about things that are actual jobs, things that you're interested in, and things that you are good at. And that is how you end up in the sweet spot. And so this is the kind of stuff, hopefully, that, again, you can think more broadly and brainstorm and talk amongst yourselves as well about thinking, okay, what kinds of options are out there and things that I could do, right? That I am interested in, that I am good at, and that are jobs, right? And so if you can get yourself in the sweet spot, that's how it's just like you're riding the river of life downstream. It's great. And so beliefs really do matter, right? So the things that you believe about yourself is very important because it will define your opportunity space. You won't do things that you don't believe are possible. And so if you don't think you're going to succeed, why bother trying? We can give you that information. Only you can control your attitudes and beliefs. All of our presenters come from hugely varied sets of circumstances, but have all found success in our different fields of endeavor. And so can you. And that's my bit. Any quick questions, or do you want to? Well, we're saving Q&A for later, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Thank you so much, though, Nate. Thank you so much. Great job telling us about the psychology of success. Okay.
Okay.
If you're having trouble seeing the full presentation as an attendee, just go ahead and unpin Ayo, and then that will make the shared screen full for you.
Okay, so my screen is being shared now. Everybody can see that, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining. My name is Ayo. Very brief background about myself. I work for the Canadian Medical Association. I have lived in Canada for about 12 years now, grew up most of my life in the United Kingdom. A very short story about why this is of interest to me. in terms of talking to everybody here. One of the first jobs I had when I had finished school was working in a bank. So I was a teller. It's a very basic job. I was working behind a cash register, doing a lot of admin in the back. And I remember one day, a number of customers came in really angry. And that was because we'd actually shortened our opening hours. And one of them made a complaint saying, well, the interest rates which you guys charge on your credit cards are so high that even your CEO has advised that he wouldn't give his daughter a credit card. I had no idea who the CEO of the company was. The bank employed about 30,000 people, but it struck me at that point that a CEO could automatically see the dangers of the interest on credit cards and wouldn't even allow his daughter to have such a card. So it got me thinking about how different people manage their money in different ways. And over the next few years of my life, I've begun to realize that two people earning the same salary can take different trajectories in life based on how they manage their money. From a very relatively young age, I became acutely aware that personal budgeting and how one manages their money can be a big differentiator in life outcomes. And hopefully over the next course of the next few weeks, as you guys are with us, hopefully you'll get some ideas and some insights from all of us, just in terms of realizing the power that a dollar has, a dollar earned and a dollar saved. So what I'm going to do for the next 10 to 15 minutes is just go through a few budgeting tips. I'm going to work through a live, very simple example. As I work through the sample, Danny will share the example with you afterwards, so you can play about with what I'm doing as well in your own time. And we're also going to share with you a practical budget as well for you guys just to start with. If you want to get into the habit of kind of budgeting on a monthly basis, just entering all your numbers into a very basic spreadsheet. And this will work on your computer at home. It will work on your cell phone. If you have Google Drive, it's very free. It's a free resource. So we'll share those with you afterwards. So just for this purpose, we're going to create an imaginary scenario that you're living at home with your parents and you're looking 10 years into the future. And you're wondering, how old you're going to be in 10 years' time. So as we're going through this, just think about these for your own life. Where do you think you'll be living? Do you think you'll still be living in Toronto? Do you think you want to live downtown? Do you think you want to move out to somewhere in a more remote area? Will you have a job? And I'm going to answer positively for everybody here. Yes, we all will. How much do you think we're going to be earning? Will we be living at home or with our parents or maybe with a partner or maybe with friends? And in this scenario, we're going to imagine that we're moving out. How are we going to get around? So these are some of the questions which we think about as we kind of go through the budgeting process. And then we wonder, how much would it cost to live on our own? Perfect. So let's assume that we're going to rent and we're going to live alone, okay? And that's going to be about $800 a month with $200 for utilities, okay? TV and internet, about $100 a month. How we're going to get around. So I'm going to assume that, again, 10 years from now, we're going to look to buy a car, going to look to buy a full-size vehicle as opposed to an SUV or as opposed to a smaller car. So that's going to give us, again, every month, around $450 in car insurance and around $400 to $10 a month in car repayments, okay? In terms of food, what's our monthly food budget? Talking for me, I'm somebody who likes a lot of variety. So I'm going to say that my average food budget might be about $600 a month. That might be in the high end. So let's go with something which is a little bit more basic. So we're going to go for about $375 a month, okay? Which sounds high, but think about it. That's about $12.50 on a daily basis, which is not, unrealistic. In terms of how we're going to furnish our house, basic furniture for me, I'm fine with. So let's say that's about $30 a month on average. How important is entertainment to you? I'm somebody who likes to go out quite a lot. So I'm going to say it's quite important to me. And that's costing me about $100 a month. Phone plan. Again, phones are getting more and more expensive. So do you need no data at all maybe, in which you're going to pay nothing every month? But most of us do need some kind of data plan. So let's say we're going to go for a larger data plan, which might take us about $100 a month. Clothing. I'm not the most fashionable person in the world, so let's say that for somebody like me, I'm fine with buying new clothes, but basic clothes. So that's about $70 a month, okay? And then there's miscellaneous items, so household products, things to clean your house with, personal products, yeah. So that's about $30 a month. Gifts, let's say you're not a massively big gifter, so let's say no for that, okay? So we're not going to pay anything monthly for that. Health and dental insurance, let's say yes. Emergency savings, yeah, we're going to put some money aside every month for a rainy day. And travel and vacation. So let's say that we do want to have that annual vacation every February, or we want to go and see our grandma on the West Coast, okay? So let's say we're going to put aside $80 every month for that. So that's all of our monthly expenditures, okay? So now let's have a look at what our our salary incomings are. Okay, so these are kind of ballpark figures. So the first question to ask is, again, we're looking 10 years into the future. Do you intend to go to college? And let's assume that yes, we are. And during the course of the next few courses, we're going to go through kind of like, and Nate spoke about it a little bit, about the different career options. Different careers do have different payoffs. On average, going to college does generate a higher salary or higher income going forward, but that's not always the case. So we're going to assume here that we have graduated college, and our average pay on a month is $4,166. For many of us, that's going to sound really high, but there's something called deductions. And all of the items we've gone through so far, we have a relative amount of degree of control over them. We could choose yes, we could choose no. We can choose to furnish our house expensively or not furnish expensively. The deductions from your gross pay, you have no choice over. And we'll kind of walk you through those over the next few sessions of this course and let you know the differences between some of these deductions and some of the taxes which come off your payslip. Okay? So me, in 10 years' time, as a college-educated guy, I'm going to assume that my net pay, the money which comes into my bank account, is going to be just over $3,286. Okay? So all of that looks good. So total, that's my total pay. All of those incoming, so all of those outgoing expenses, which I looked at earlier, which we went through, comes to $2,962. So at the end of each month, I'm left with $324. Now, this is just an example, and you can see that that's a good amount of money to be left with at each end of each month, just to kind of be flexible with. But just to show you how easily that can change, let's just assume that I didn't go to college, okay? And I have a job which doesn't require a college degree, and maybe my salary will be a little bit lower. Suddenly, I can't afford my lifestyle. At the end of each month, I have a negative of $1,035.10. So suddenly, when I'm in that position, I have to start playing about with different things here. Maybe I can't afford that car. Maybe I do need to take the bus, okay? And that's saving me money there. And I'm only paying $100 for my TTC card or my Presto card. And suddenly, okay, I've taken that deficit down from $1,000 to $2,075. But I'm still in a deficit. So again, these are the things which, when people like Nate and Henry and ourselves and your parents and our friends are going through our expenses, it's all about trying to balance what we can spend with what we're bringing in. Sometimes what we're bringing in is a longer term commitment, so we can't change that in the short term. Often our expenses we can change in the short term. So I just wanted to walk you through this just to show you that, and this will be shared with you so you can play about with it, just to show you that the choices we make in terms of our finances can have a huge influence on how much money we have at the end of each month. And the second takeaway, which I like everyone to think about, is in terms of our salary, sometimes that investment in a college education does increase our potential earnings, and that can contribute to us kind of having more generous lifestyle, which we like. So with that, I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. So just bear with me 1 minute. So here's a few budgeting tips, which I just wanted to share with everybody here. And we've been through some of these today as well. Know what your take-home pay is. There's a big difference between your gross pay, which is what it's going to say when you offer the job, and your net pay, which is how much hits your bank account. Pay yourself first. Start saving young. It's never too early. When I was working as a cashier in the bank, I saw people as young as 14 or 15 with savings accounts where they were contributing their own money into. Nate gave a good example of his father encouraging him to start saving young and start understanding the different investments. And we're going to share with you over the next few sessions some strategies in terms of how you can do this as well. A very big one, which we will talk about today, number 6, budget your money. Know what's coming in, know what's going out. Be very, very intentional in terms of what you budget. It's very easy to say, I'm going to spend $200 a month. Well, how are you going to break down that $200? Be very realistic in terms of what you can spend and what you realistically cannot spend as well. Very big thing, which we're going to get onto excuse me, in future sessions as well, is in terms of number 11, your credit past and your credit future. Having access to a credit card is a very powerful tool. For some people, it can be used for good. For some people, it can be very detrimental and can be used to kind of take you back further in life than you should be. So we're going to go through that again over the next few sessions. And staying insured. Insurance is a very, very big thing in terms of that car, which we looked at in the budget. You know, God forbid, if anything happens to us, insurance is something which helps us to kind of mitigate the loss and to make sure that we have something to cover our backs when that happens. So that's all I had for today.